And
Nice to see. Yes.
hopefully ED
Yes,
is
sir.
joining. ED is
Okay.
joining. He has just
Okay.
reached his office. There was some
Okay.
time.
Okay. Okay.
So he's joining.
Okay, sir. That's very good. So, would you suggest we should wait for some time?
Yes, we can wait for a few minutes, just few
Okay,
minutes.
sir. Okay.
Hmm. I just spoke to him. He told that he will be joining.
Okay. Thank you so much.
तब तक we can start with introductions. थोड़ा सा. It will take some time. Right? Okay. Nishi ma'am? Anshula?
Yes.
Anshula recording. Nishi ma'am, over to you.
Namaste and good morning, everyone. I'm Nishi Verma, Research Program Officer at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav Evam Niti Anusandhan Sansthan, Nai Delhi. Extend my heartiest welcome to you all to IMPRI #Web Policy Learning. We are here on first day of 3-day online certificate training program on Women-led Sustainable and Decentralized Water Resource Management, a multi-stakeholders perspective. This training program is being organized by National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, in collaboration with IMPRI Center for Environment, Climate Change and Sustainable Development, New Delhi. Women are most often the collectors, users, and managers of water in the household and the farmers of irrigated and rain-fed crops. Women have consequently accumulated considerable knowledge about this resource, from its quality and reliability to acceptable storage methods. The advantages of engaging women in water management should by now be obvious. But unfortunately, women themselves are often unaware of their potential value and are not involved in water user associations, public water management bodies, and water committees, thus hindering the success of water management efforts. The lack of participation of women further hampers social equity and initiatives for empowering them. Increasing women involvement through policies and reforms in water management would bring benefits to individuals, society, and the conservation of masses. If sustainable resource development is the goal, local ownership and regulation are critical. For this to be truly successful, all users and stakeholders should be involved in developing water management and irrigation program, including and perhaps first and foremost women. It is important to ensure that the water sector becomes more gender aware, a process that should begin with training programs for community and the grassroots mobilizers in this field. This 3-day online training program precisely aims to do this. In these 3 days, we have an excellent and eminent panel of experts who would be sharing their knowledge on the above theme. The patron for the program is Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal, Executive Director, NIDM New Delhi. Our conveners include Professor Anil Kumar Gupta, Head ECDRM, NIDM New Delhi, Dr. Simi Mehta, CEO and Editorial Director, IMPRI. Our eminent panelists include Mr. Maulik Sisodia, Executive Director, Tarun Bharat Sangh, Alwar; Mr. Ranjan Panda, Waterman of Odisha, Convener, Water Initiatives Odisha and Combat Climate Change Network, India; Professor Varsha Khandkar, Faculty, Marketing, Indian Institute of Management, IIM, Nagpur; Ms. Anjali Makhija, Chief Operating Officer, SM Sehgal Foundation, Gurugram; Dr. Marcela D'Souza, Director, WOTR Center for Resilience Studies, former Executive Director of Watershed Organization Trust, WOTR; Dr. Mansi Bal Bhargava, Entrepreneur, Researcher and Educator, former Executive Director, Saki Waters; Mr. V.R. Raman, Head of Policy, WaterAid India, National Convener, Public Health Resource Network; Mr. Tikender Singh Parwar, former Deputy Mayor, Shimla, Senior Visiting Fellow at IMPRI, New Delhi; Ms. Urvashi Prasad, Director, Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office, Niti Aayog. The moderator of the session is Dr. Simi Mehta. The coordinators for this online certificate training program are Ms. Gopal Verma from NIDM, Nishi Verma, Malcolm Anthony, Mahima Kapoor, and Ritika Sundar from IMPRI. For today, day 1, we have initial remarks from Anil Kumar Gupta, and also and then we will be followed by sessions from our expert panelists, Mr. Maulik Sisodia, Mr. Ranjan Panda, and Professor Varsha Khandkar. Before proceeding further, I would like to share some housekeeping announcements. These are: please join the meeting on time and ensure at least 80% attendance of the 3-day online training certificate course for obtaining certificates. There is allotment of 15 to 20 minutes for question and answers after each lecture by eminent experts, and the questions will be moderated by us to ensure that they are answered in the best possible way. Hence, please feel free to write your questions on Q&A box only and not on chat box, posting it by your name and not as an anonymous attendee. Also, please keep the questions precise and refrain from making any general comments to save time and learn more from this certificate training program. With these initial remarks, I would like you to introduce you to the patron of the program, Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal. Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal is presently the Executive Director, National Institute of Disaster Management. During his more than 3 decades of service, he has held important command and staff assignments. Having held all the echelons of command within an air defense regiment in diverse theaters, he commanded an air defense regiment and an air defense brigade in the Kashmir region against the backdrop of counter-insurgency operations. Major General M.K. Bindal served as the Provost Marshal in the United Nations mission in Mozambique, where he was deeply involved in the liquidation of the mission. He has been the Director, Center of United Nations Peacekeeping, New Delhi. For 3 years, he was also the Secretary of the International Association of Peacekeeping Training Centers. Should I?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Now I would like to introduce you to Professor Anil Kumar Gupta, Head ECDRM, NIDM, New Delhi. Professor Anil is head of India's National Institute of Disaster Management, NIDM Division of Environment and Disaster Risk Management. He is Program Director of the Center for Excellence on Climate Resilience and Implementing Project. He is Sustainability Risk Management Strategist working in the area of disaster management, environment and climate resilience for more than 25 years with national, subnational and business administrations. He has credit for preparation of national and sectoral disaster management plans, human resource capacity development plans, national action plan for chemical disaster management, national drought manual, institutional expansion and strengthening plan, and guided related subnational planning, climate actions, SDG implementation, and pilots. He was recipient of National Science Day Young Scientist Award in Forestry and Environment in 1996, Excellence Award by Society of Environmental and Occupational Health, and offered IDRC Canada's Think Tank Initiative Senior Fellowship 2011 for policy research. He is elected Fellow of Earth Scientists Society. He worked governments, CSI, universities, corporate, and NGOs in professional and administrative capacities. Welcome, sir, and please provide your initial remarks.
Yes.
Yeah, Nishi.
Sir yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes.
Yeah, our ED sir, Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal sir is here, and I think he is in the attendees. Kindly check and make his time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir has joined using the attendee link.
Kindly check.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes. So he is here. Yes.
Yes, sir is here. Yes. So good morning, sir. Now I can see.
Yes.
But his camera and these are not enabled, I think. Please see. His mic-
Bindal
his
sir, are
mic-
you able to listen to us?
No, his mic and video is not enabled. Or
I think it is now. It is now.
yes. So good morning,
Yes,
sir.
sir is here. Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
And sir, Actually, this series of programs with IMPRI, we were eagerly waiting that some program you will be able to join. Past programs
It's
also
a
were
very
well
good
attended.
topic.
Yes.
It's a very good topic today. It's a
Thank you,
very good
sir.
topic.
Thank you, sir. So if we may request you, please provide your initial remarks and then we can move to the program. So,
Okay. Okay.
over to you. Thank you
Just
so
a
much, sir.
Can I start?
Yes, sir. Sir,
Please, sir, please.
your introduction and other things have been given.
Okay,
waiting
that has
for
been
you.
done. Okay,
Sir,
okay.
sir,
So
sir.
first of all, Jai Hind to everyone and a very hearty welcome to all the participants who have joined and to the esteemed panelists. And we are thankful to IMPRI for collaborating with NIDM and organizing important program on an important topic, which is the need of the day, because role of women in disaster management, role of women in sustainable development, role of women for a better society is normally underplayed. Because of various reasons, which could be societal reasons or otherwise. So there is a need that the women need to be uh, involved in the whole planning process, and they must be form part of a disaster planning, management and research outlooks, then recognition within the social sciences. The role of women needs to be recognized. And for that, the disadvantages that they have due to a patriarchal social structure needs to be circumvented. Uh, NIDM always has a focus on gender and disaster management for decades now, and we have been organizing number of programs for gender based disaster management, inclusiveness of disaster management. And today it's a specific topic of women for sustainable water resources related issues. Role of women is often underplayed in our society. Whether it be related to health, whether it be related to water, whether it be related to education, because traditional systems, the burden of the running the household uh, with external resources falls on the men, and the women are looking after the household within the household. But that is not the correct perspective from which we should see the role of women. If we see the role of women in the correct perspective, automatically things will fall in place. Simple things that the burden of providing potable water to the family falls on the woman, and they have to travel large distances to collect water. And there are many villages which don't have water, so they have to go kilometers away, and they are wasting or spending, and not wasting, I'll say, spending 4 to 5 hours a day in collection of water. This is not only in India, this is in most of the countries across the world. This is happening. In some countries, there is a concept now of water wives, that polygamy has started, that you marry more than one woman, so that the household chores can be divided among them, and some of them can be dedicated for the water collection itself. So water and women is very, very closely interlinked, but nowhere are they involved. Simple thing like establishing a hand pump in a village. The men folk, they just decide and they do it. But when you take the note and bring in participatory uh, approach and involve women in the planning, they will look at so many other issues. They will look at privacy issues. They will look at secluded spot where they can meet each other, spend time with other women, and also have adequate privacy. So the same thing which is more to be used by women needs to be decided by taking the women on board. uh, disasters, the men folk immediately move out. They move out in search of food, they move out for response, they moved out for helping others, they move out for community service. The burden of ensuring the safety of the people inside the household falls on the woman. But are they involved in the whole process? No. Today, a woman in, I'm talking about rural woman, she decides the health of the family just by the look of the water and the taste of the water. Because of lack of water access, she just decides that whether this water is fit enough for drinking or not. So that, and she, that is how she is looking after the nutrition of the family and the future growth. But they're not involved in the whole planning process. So women-led sustainable development is a very, very right initiative. And in disasters especially, we have seen how the women get constrained by, they have to do whatever they have to do with the amount of water they get, which the men folk get it, but they're not getting the right amount. If some intervention is to be done to get water to a particular village, uh, women may not be part of that whole planning process as to how much water should come to each household, what are the what is the requirement of water for the various activities, and hence the whole thing should be worked out as what should be the size of the pipe, what should be the pumping capacity, and things like that. Because we have even in livelihood also, cottage industries especially, women play a major role. They are the workforce. So involving women in such initiatives is very, very important. So there are two major things in this: is they have a right to be heard, and hence they should form part of every planning committee, right from the inception till the execution stage. And secondly, they should get a seat at the table. We should be mentally prepared that they require a seat at the table to ensure that the project that we are implementing or the policies we are implementing are sustainable. Because anything to do with water other than industries is being handled by the women, not the men. Everywhere, whether it be any household you see, industries, it's a separate subject where the women don't get involved that much. But the bulk of the requirement of water that we have and the crisis that we are likely to face, because today India is the largest extractor of groundwater in the world, and the rate at which the underwater reservoirs are drying up, water crisis is going to increase day by day. And it will affect maximum the households, because there a lot of human lives are dependent upon that water, unlike an industry where they can always find some alternate source through science and technology innovations and research. They can do something that they can replace it with some chemical or something like that. So my message for this particular program is that women should be always be involved right in the beginning for any intervention that we want to do, any policy we want to take out, uh, right from the day one itself, and they should keep forming part of it till that particular project is completed, or till whatever is the life cycle of that project. There has to be representation of women at the decision making level. And secondly, women have to be given a seat at the table at every forum wherever water related issues are being discussed. I'm talking about only water related because this particular program is water related. Otherwise, for any sustainable development, they have to form part of the decision makers. One is decision making process, and second is the part of the decision makers. So with these two messages, I will finish here. And I wish this program a very big success. And I'll be reading the report of this program very keenly, because it is a very important topic that you all have picked up. Thank you so much. And back to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. We really are grateful to you for your time and for your very important message. At the outset, you really set the tone for the session. And thank you very much. We really are grateful. Thank you, sir. So I would now request Nishi to introduce and invite our convener and expert, Professor Anil Kumar Gupta. Sir, welcome, and we are so happy that you were able to make time. We know it's busy for you as well. So, sir, Nishi, over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. So with the introduction of Professor Anil Kumar Gupta, Head ECDRM, NIDM, New Delhi. Professor Anil is head of India's National Institute of Disaster Management, NIDM Division of Environment and Disaster Risk Management. He is Program Director of the Center for Excellence on Climate Resilience and Implementing Projects. He is a sustainability risk management strategist working in the area of disaster management, environment, and climate resilience for more than 25 years with national, subnational, and business administrations. He has credit for preparation of national and sectoral disaster management plans, human resource capacity development plans, national action plan for chemical disaster management, national drought manual, institutional expansion and strengthening plan, and guided related subnational planning, climate actions, SDG implementation, and pilots. He was recipient of National Science Day Young Scientist Award in Forestry and Environment in 1996, Excellence Award by Society of Environmental and Occupational Health, and offered IDRC Canada's Think Tank Initiative Senior Fellowship 2011 for policy research. He is elected Fellow of Earth Scientists Society. He worked with government, CSIR, universities, corporate, and NGOs in professional and administrative capacities. Welcome, sir, and please give your initial remarks.
Thank you, Nishi and Dr. Simi. I must express sincere thanks to Executive Director and IDM for providing excellent guiding words for this 3 days very important discourse in the form of a training program on a very, very important topic. As ED and IDM emphasize on recognizing the role of women in the entire system of disaster risk management, starting from recognizing the risk and vulnerability, then preventive steps, mitigation, and also during emergencies. And what is very important that the evaluation of the contribution of women in all these steps that has not been to the extent actually it should be. So that is very important. And as an IDM has been taking a lot of initiatives in promoting women-led interventions on disaster risk management, that is in pursuance of the Honorable Prime Minister's 10-point agenda on disaster risk management, where the item 6 is on promoting women leadership. So now, in fact, we are not only talking about the participation of women, but actually we are looking at the women leadership. And here we see, and I am very happy, and I must compliment Dr. Arjun for taking this initiative, that the entire team of IMPRI, Dr. Simi, Nishi, and many others, and here Dr. Kopal is here. So this event itself is also a women-led initiative. So my compliments to the entire team. And here I would also refer to that the women-led initiative does not mean that the men are not there. It is basically the social initiative, but we put women at the front because by recognizing their special potentials, and special potentials as ED and IDM, Major General Bindal also referred to, that is at the household level, at the level of society, at the level of professional friends also. Now, regarding the theme, so water and land management go hand in hand. We particularly when it comes to the community level disaster risk reduction and sustainable development issues, we cannot actually separate land management and water management. And that is what the issues like the groundwater recharge, watershed-based initiatives, the community-led, the farm pond systems or irrigation approaches. all these things we cannot actually separate land and water. And in fact, the third front also, that is the ecosystem aspect, and the fourth front, that is the social aspect. So in fact, all these four dimensions are closely linked. And why we are actually talking a lot about water? Because water, a famous quote is there, that the flame of water, a flame of life burns in water. But it is also true that water everywhere, there is no water to drink. In this country, it was 2015, we faced a different kind of drought. That was a drinking water drought. That was in Marathwada, Latur drought, if we recall. So now, in fact, there are global discourse and global initiatives going on about urban drought, because now with the expansion of urban areas, now most of the population is living in urban areas, and by 2050 or even by 2030 also, they almost 50% of the people will be living in some either in the cities or towns. So these kind of challenges are going to be more concentrated in urban and peri-urban areas. So these kind of initiatives should not be limited only to the rural areas, but we have to look at the women-led water management initiatives within rural areas, within the protected areas like biodiversity parks and other places, in peri-urban areas, because peri-urban population, they suffer with the water and sanitation issues to a great extent. So this issue has a wide diversity of challenges to address. And the third aspect that this training is going to focus is decentralized. I think that is very, very important, because we have been talking almost past 3 decades, we have been talking about that think globally, act locally. And when it comes to act locally, basically it requires local initiatives, local solutions, and also integrating indigenous knowledge kind of things also. So although the climate change related issues are global problems, even they when we talk about the global level initiative for DRR, so that is a global issue. But the solutions we will have to find out locally. And at local level, the planning has to be decentralized. And when we say decentralized, does not mean that disintegrated. Basically, it is integrated but decentralized. So that is important. And that is the reason now we are trying to say, we are trying to emphasize that the district level planning should further be looked at, that how village level planning will be integrated, how taluka level planning will be integrated. So I think that is very important initiative. And it also requires that we make some kind of a documentation or some kind of a study or analysis of various women-led initiatives in the country, like different kind of initiatives there, like the water users groups, or the self-help groups, are many women-led initiatives were there in southern states also, in northeastern states also. So we see that how those initiatives can help us draw the lessons for integrating into the mainstream processes of disaster risk reduction, particularly water related disasters, climate related disasters, and other geohazards which are directly or indirectly associated with these issues, including landslides, including the slope erosion, including the challenges of agriculture systems, challenges of health systems, diseases. So many things are very much associated. So my compliments and my best wishes to the entire team for this very, very important program. And I will be looking forward to listening to the experts who have been actively working on these issues in the field. I see Mr. Panda is here, and other speakers are there. Mr. Sundar is here. So I'm very happy that excellent speakers are there and who will be sharing their real life case studies and experiences from the field. So thank you, and over to you, Nishi.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. Actually, I must tell this right in the beginning that this entire training program and all the others that we have been able to do along with NIDM, it has been totally under your guidance, and we really look forward to receiving your guidance and also Major General's guidance and support in the future. So thank you so much, and also for your initial remarks. Certainly, there needs to be a complementarity between women and men as they shoulder the water resources management in a sustainable manner. And in the times of climate change, climate action definitely has to have such grassroots level as well as top down and bottom up complementarity to move towards a water secure future. So thank you so much for your remarks, sir. So I would now hand it over to Nishi.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I would like to introduce you to the first expert, Mr. Maulik Sisodia, Executive Director, Tarun Bharat Sangh, Alwar. Mr. Maulik Sisodia is the Executive Director of Tarun Bharat Sangh, a water-focused Indian development NGO that has been focused on spreading simple water-saving steps such as rainwater harvesting to local communities across the arid reaches of India's Rajasthan state. Having been with the organization since 2009, Sisodia believes that it has to influence national water policy if India is to adapt to rapidly declining water resources. He is one of the well-known social workers in the country, and he has been the heart behind numerous social activities in the region of Rajasthan and Maharashtra. He is also steering a national movement of water literacy, Jal Jan Jodo Abhiyan, to protect the rights of rivers, water bodies, and their natural course and basin, and to ensure community rights on this precious resource through creation. He's received his MBA in 2008 from the Symbiosis Institute of International Business and belongs to a new generation of management graduates with careers in the development sector. He is a member of the 2019 class of New Voices Fellows at the Aspen Institute.
Thank you, Nishi. Actually, sir is having some connection issues, but he has already shared a video for that was to be shared with the audience before the presentation. So we can play his video first, the video, and then we'll see if sir is able to join. Yeah.
आप में से कोई भगवान से मिला है? भगवान को जानते हो? कौन है भगवान? मैं इतना बता देता हूं भगवान के बारे में कि वो सीमेंट कंक्रीट के और पत्थर की बिल्डिंग में ताले में बंद नहीं रहता, कभी नहीं बंद रह सकता हूं। तो भगवान कौन है? भगवान है जिसने हमें बनाया। वो कौन है? वैसे भूमि, जैसे गगन, वैसे वायु, ऐसे अग्नि और नैसे नील।
It is Women's Day, and they celebrate. The smiles on these faces reflect their hopes. The audacity of their aspirations. They celebrate the new heroes and pathfinders to a sustainable future, the women. Imagine life without water. This is a reality that India, over 1.3 billion people, struggle to come to terms with. Droughts and a perennial scarcity of water is a way of life in Rajasthan. When nature suffers, humanity does too. An entire ecological system is pushed over the edge. River systems are disappearing. Wells are drying. The scarcity of water resulted not just in economic hardship, it tore about the social fabric. Families lay broken as the men left their village in search of work and livelihood.
बिना पानी बहुत दुखी है, पशु दुखी और मांस दुखी, जीने के लिए पानी चाहिए। बिना पानी ना तो पैदा हो, ना बीमारी को पैसा, ना खाने को पैसा काटे आवे।
But the greatest suffering are borne by the women. Not even young girls are spared.
पहले से जो बकरी चराव था, भैंस चरा लेता, बस खेती काम करता, बच्चा न खड़ाओ कौन सा छोटा बच्चा था को कुमार नहीं जाएगा.
Their dreams sacrificed to the needs of their household. They became the silent victims of untold misery.
राजस्थान में सबसे ज्यादा कष्ट महिलाओं की जिंदगी पर होता है. यदि गांव में पानी नहीं है तो महिलाएं मटकी लेके मीलों दूर पानी लेने जाती हैं. महिला की जो जीवन की जो संकट है, उस संकट ना तो बच्चों को संभालने देता, ना बच्चों को पढ़ने भेजने देता. महिलाओं की जिंदगी तो तबाह होती है, लेकिन बच्चों की भी जिंदगी तबाह हो जाती है.
Rajasthan faced a vicious cycle where one deprivation led inexorably to another.
तो यहाँ जो है 7 गांव की पंचायत है महिलाओं की.
Tarun Bharat Sangh therefore pioneered a unique approach to Rajasthan's water woes. A simple yet powerful idea.
नीर नारी और नदी.
Neer, Nari, Nadi. Conservation through women empowerment.
सुनो, अंगूरी कह रही है कि इनके गांव का कुआं सूखा है और रात भर जग के पानी लाना पड़ता है. गांव उजड़ता क्यों है? बिना पानी उजड़ता है. तरुण भारत संघ पिछले 35-40 वर्षों से नीर, नारी और नदी के लिए काम कर रहा है.
नीर हमारे जीवन को चलाने के लिए, नारी हमारे समाज को चलाने के लिए और नदी हमारी सभ्यता को जीवित रखने के लिए.
जब हम महिला सशक्तिकरण की बात करते हैं तो यह है कि वो कितनी समर्थ बन रही है फैसले लेने में, या जो भी फायदा हो रहा है उसमें उनकी कितनी भागीदारी है. तो वो सामर्थ्य ही उनके सशक्तिकरण को स्पष्ट करता है.
But how do you translate ideas into action? The first and most important step, therefore, was to inspire self-governance.
देखिए, जब भी काम की जो शुरुआत की जाती है उसकी पहली कड़ी ही महिला है. हमारे जो महिला साथी हैं, हमारे जो कार्यकर्ता साथी हैं, वो जब भी गांव में जाते हैं और वो किस तरीके से घर घर जाकर और सुबह, रात, दोपहर जब भी लोगों की उपलब्धता होती है उनसे संवाद स्थापित करने की कोशिश करते हैं, तभी उसमें से मुद्दे निकल के आते हैं और वही एक संबंध भी बनता है, एक रिश्ता भी बनता है और विश्वास भी बनता है. और उसी विश्वास की नींव पर हम अपने इस काम को आगे बढ़ा पाते हैं.
पहले उनके बच्चों के साथ स्कूल में काम करते हैं, उनकी लड़कियों के साथ, उनके बच्चों के साथ में कहीं बाहर जाना है, प्रोजेक्ट मीटिंग जाना है तो वहाँ भी ले जाते हैं उनको. तो इस तरह से धीरे धीरे उनका जुड़ाव होता है. जो भी हमारी योजना होती है पानी की, पानी बचाने की, जल संरक्षण की, उनके काम के बारे में उनको बताते हैं.
Through meetings with the villages, talks in schools, and workshops in village panchayats, the message of conservation was brought to the remotest of villages. The people of Rajasthan were galvanized. It was they and they alone who could help themselves, they realized. The image of the desert is synonymous with the arid state of Rajasthan. Water is precious here. The logical step then is to preserve the precious little water that is available. Ponds and reservoirs prove to be simple yet effective solutions. No longer would rainwater run off into streams. Instead, it would seep into the ground and replenish the water table. Tarun Bharat Sangh served a catalyst in this transformation.
महिला समूह का जोड़ा बना खुदाया और दो लुगाया जोड़ और वहां समूह बनाया. 25 वर्ष होगा मन काम.
Local communities contribute 1/3 of the investment required for the construction of each reservoir. The rest is contributed by the Tarun Bharat Sangh. The idea to encourage a sense of collective ownership and responsibility.
जिस जोहड़ को, जिस बांध को, जिस चेकडैम को, जिस सन्निकट को वो एकमात्र बस पानी का स्रोत मानते हैं, या उसकी महत्वता का जब उन्हें पता लगता है कि वही है एक शाश्वत उपाय जो कि धरती माँ का पेट भरता है, और उस धरती माँ जब पेट भरता है तो वो अपने बच्चों को देती है.
The results of this initiative soon manifested themselves. Before anyone noticed an ecological transformation had taken place, the water table rose and the rivers that had disappeared soon began to flow.
डोर बना से पानी में लगाया ऊपर तो हमारी खेती खूब हुई, हमारा ढांडोर में फसल में पानी में को ढांडोर में बन गए, ये काम किया तो जब हमारा फायदा है फायदा। अब इसको तो बढ़िया होती, कभी पानी गया, पहले पानी खा सारा दिन तो माथा में मटकी दे जाए रात, और घर आए पानी गया, टूटी दबा पानी जगह जगह, तो घर में ही पानी आ गया, जब घर में भाई काम कर लिया सा, कहीं जब मीटिंग आ गया, मीटिंग में नहीं आता तो घर पानी कौन भरता, पैसे पानी कौन पाता, अब मुझे पास में ही से कुंडा बना लिया, खेल बना लिया।
There is also enough water for livestock to thrive, opening new avenues for much needed income.
उन्हीं कुओं से या उन्हीं ट्यूबवेल से पानी निकल के उनके खेतों में जाता है और उस खेतों से उत्पन्न जब वो अनाज होता है वो फिर दोबारा उनके घर में आता है, और या जो दूध होता है जो उनकी भैंसों के द्वारा उन्हें मिलता है, अगर वो और ज्यादा होता है तो बाजार में जाता है और उस बाजार से उन्हें फिर मुद्रा आती है, और ये जब अर्थशास्त्र उन्हें जब समझ में आता है।
Today, Teja, once impoverished, is thriving. Once she spent her day going to and from in search of water. Besides farming, she has taken to dairy farming with a passion.
भैंस रखो, दूध दो डेयरी में तो अपना काम चल जाएगा, तब भूखा कौन मरा, अच्छा फायदा मिले।
The income she earns from selling milk is meeting all her family needs. Teja's case is an example of enterprising spirit of the women of Rajasthan. Given an opportunity, they can achieve anything.
व्यवस्था है हमारी, पानी व्यवस्था है तो हमारा फसल वसल बढ़िया है, फसल है तो हमारा तो बढ़िया अपने बच्चा की टाइम पास है और अपने थोड़ा बहुत काम कर लें तो बाबू टाइम मिल जाए।
Free from the drudgery of their former lives, they became decision makers.
और वो ऐसे काम करती हैं जो उनकी आमदनी भी बढ़ा देता है, जैसे वो सिलाई करती हैं तो कहीं ना कहीं वो उस परिवार में डिसीजन मेकिंग का हिस्सा बनती है।
Now they could contribute to the economic upliftment of their families. They could devote time to their children's health and education. Education is empowerment. This is particularly true for the women of India. The foundations of empowerment have to be laid at the very beginning. The education of the girl child is therefore central to the campaign.
जमीनी स्तर पर स्कूलों में जाकर हम बच्चों के साथ सीधा संवाद हमारे कार्यकर्ता स्थापित करते हैं और करीब 1000 स्कूलों के साथ सीधा हमारा संपर्क है।
Aarti and Sanjana are the products of this approach. As young girls in the remote villages bordering the Sarishka National Park in Rajasthan, they came across a campaign that changed their life.
हमारे यहाँ पे जो तरुण भारत संघ है उसका कैंप लगता था तो उसमें हमारे को काफी उत्साहवर्धन मिला। उन्होंने हमें जंगल के बारे में बताया, कैंप के बारे में बताया और ऐसे अलग अलग पेड़ों की प्रजातियों के बारे में बताया, काफी वाइल्ड लाइफ के बारे में हमें जानकारी बताई। कैंपों की वजह से हमें जानकारी मिली और हमारे मन में ये हुआ कि हमें भी कुछ करना है, हमें आगे बढ़ना चाहिए।
Today, Sanjana and Aarti stand at the front line in the fight to preserve our precious environment. Slowly but steadily, a new generation of inspired minds are standing up to their responsibilities.
वो इसलिए बन पाई, उनकी माँ को थोड़ा जिंदगी में समय मिला और माँ ने अपनी बेटियों को पढ़ाना शुरू किया।
मेरा नाम शांति है और मेरा गांव गोपालपुरा है। मैं यही टीचर हूँ। पानी की समस्या धीरे धीरे हल होने लग गई। वो लड़कियां पहले बहुत कम आती थी, अब स्कूल में बहुत ज्यादा आने लग गई।
Water conservation must go hand in hand with water efficiency. Hence, Tarun Bharat Sangh is relentless in its efforts to inculcate new methods and water efficiency measures among the populace.
हजारों किसानों के साथ हमने काम किया है और उन्होंने इन नई तकनीकों को अपनाया भी है और वहाँ हमने देखा है कि पानी की जो खपत थी वो कई जगह 50 से 80% तक कम हुई है, जबकि कृषि उत्पादन जो है वो 1.5 से 2 गुना बढ़ा है। तो पर ड्रॉप मोर क्रॉप
Lali Devi was once struggling to cultivate her small farm. To begin with, there was little water for irrigation, and her farm being on a sloping tract of land, most of the water would in any case run off. Tarun Bharat Sangh helped Lali Devi overcome her problems.
आया जुड़िया भाई ये कहीं पेड़ पौधा लगावा करे में तो मैं पानी की सिंचाई कहाँ से करूँ भाई फिर उसमें आया क्या भाई माना नल दे पंप दे कहीं भी दे फिर मैं व्यवस्था करा पानी की पानी कम से तो फिर उन्हें पंप दिया फवारा दिया नली दी ड्रिप दी टंकी बनाई मारे तो उसमें फिर पेड़ में पानी दे जाता जून में पानी दे जाता सिंचाई कर जाता तो मन बढ़िया फायदा मिल गया.
The use of water-efficient technologies worked wonders for Lali Devi. Soon she could get 2 crops a year from her once barren land. Once a poor farmer in a drought-stricken land, her husband Sriram appreciates the change.
हमारे जो ढलान भूमि है इसमें पानी नहीं रुकता तो इसमें फव्वारा से हमें बहुत अच्छी पैदा मिल गई और कम पानी में हमने बहुत बढ़िया फसल ली.
सारे ने बताओ जो मेहनत बढ़िया बढ़िया काम हो जाए तुम्हारा पेड़ पौधा हो तो सभी चीज आ रही थी तो भाई थैली ले लो तो आपने सबके हो जाएगा सबके सब चीज हो जाएगी थोड़ा पानी में कमाई हो जाएगी.
Lali Devi is now a fierce advocate of water conservation and efficiency. Hers is the story of countless others that have found a new home. The story of Tarun Bharat Sangh's efforts carries lessons that can be replicated across the world. They come with problems. They leave with solutions.
Here I have come with 40 farmers to see the waterworks. We even talked to a few farmers. They said now life is sustainable and they can manage their life without going to cities.
आप में से कोई भगवान से मिला है? भगवान को जानते हो? कौन है भगवान?
This Women's Day, they celebrate. These women realize their true potential, spawning a new confidence, indeed a new consciousness. Today, Rajasthan is racing ahead to achieve sustainable development goals such as no poverty, zero hunger, water for all, good health and well-being, quality education and gender equality.
और इस काम को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए मैं सबको बधाई देता हूँ.
I'm Philip Francis from the Flow Partnership, and for me he epitomizes the idea that we are not waiting to make a change to our life. The community has a power in itself.
जहाँ उन्होंने अपने पानी को बचाने के लिए आगे उन्होंने नेतृत्व की भूमिका ली है, उन्होंने सारे गाँव आज महिला ज़्यादा सशक्त है, ज़्यादा अपनी बात को ज़्यादा बेहतर तरीके से समाज के सामने स्पष्ट रूप से प्रकट कर पाते हैं.
हम पानी का काम करके नदियों को जीवित करके नारियों को सबल बना के नारियों को शिक्षित और मजबूत करके इस देश को सही मायने में स्वावलंबी और स्वराज्य के रास्ते पर लेके आने का काम पानी के द्वारा करते हैं.
Perhaps this is just what the world needs today. In an age where mindless progress threatens the delicate natural balance, Tarun Bharat Sangh presents a simple yet powerful idea. Sustainability through women empowerment. Neer, Nari, Nadi.
Well, that was indeed a very motivational video to start with. So looking into the dry land of Rajasthan, now let's move to east coastal and plateau land of Odisha. I would like to introduce to our next expert, Mr. Ranjan K. Panda, Waterman of Odisha, convener, Water Initiatives Odisha, and Combat Climate Change Network India. Mr. Ranjan Panda, a socialist by education, has about 3 decades of experience facilitating several initiatives starting from grassroots to national levels to promote water, environmental conservation, and climate change advocacy. He convenes 2 active networks, Water Initiative Odisha and Combat Climate Change Network India. He is a well-known expert on water, sanitation, and climate change issues, and also a senior freelance journalist. He also leads the Mahanadi Peace Initiative, Healthy Rivers, Happy Cities, and Youth for Change campaign. He organizes the Odisha River Conference each year. Popularly known as the Waterman of Odisha and also as Climate Crusader in India, was awarded by the President of India with the first Green Hero by NDTV Toyota. Recently, he was also profiled as Odisha's Conservation Master by Hindustan Times and Aqua Guard by New Indian Express. He has been recognized as Mahanadi River Waterkeeper by the New York based Global Waterkeeper Alliance. He has many more awards and recognitions to his credit. A contributor of columns in many publications like Down to Earth, Urban Update, 6 Degree News, India Climate Dialogue, he has also been one of the founders of Climate Journalism Network based out of Oslo Met University, Norway. Until recently, he also held the honorary position of country manager for India. The Climate Scorecard project, based out of Boston, USA, that monitors the progress of Paris Agreement commitments by highest CHG emitted nations. Welcome, sir, to IMPRI # Web Policy Learning, and over to you.
Sir, you're not audible.
Hear me now?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nixie and team IMPRI. I'm really honored to be here with one of my most revered persons, Professor Anil Gupta ji, and I'm also thankful that you will get me this opportunity to talk here. So basically, I'll try to. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you can go full screen. If you'll suggest, I can do the share so that you can speak freely. Would that be fine?
Okay.
Okay. So
you can stop sharing?
Yes.
Stop sharing?
Yes, sir. Just stop the sharing. Let me.
Okay. Okay. Great. That is better. Thank you so much.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So the women's work for water actually has been very long in India and elsewhere. And when I talk about their work for water, it's also their work for an effective role in water governance in India. So, as you all know, they have miles to travel to actually be an equal, part in decision making in water governance in India. So, as we enter into a period where our next water policy is being finalized, I think 3 drafts have already been in place and they are being updated. I think it's the right time to discuss about this issue. So I congratulate you for having actually selected this very important topic because they're just equals in almost everything, but not when it comes to decision making in water. So let me go to a broader perspective. Next slide, please. Yeah, they have been the water carriers actually. If we traditionally look at the role that women have been playing, except for very few, exceptions and all. So they have basically been the water carriers for us. So we still have a lot of people in India who do not have access to piped water at their doorsteps. And even when I always, I'm not very happy when even officials and all say that, okay, we have got a pipe connection somewhere outside of 50 meters or 100 meters. So kind of the new ambitious program that the government of India has launched and many state governments are already on it is one of the most, I would say one of the most decisive initiative that India has ever taken, Har Ghar Nal Ka Jal. So while we see that that will happen in reality, and it will definitely happen in some time, in some years. At this moment, the reality is women still carry the water from taps and even within the homes. So the major, responsibility for managing water, carrying water, and utilizing it, actually that lies on the women. So they are in fact the women's the water crisis or water actually I would say is equivalent to women in our societies, in our families, and in our communities. So if you see everywhere, go to Islam where a water tanker is actually uh, is distributing water. You go to a mining area where the communities who have been displaced are being supplied with water through tankers. Go to any water taps. So you will invariably see the woman doing that job for all of us. So for the family. So anywhere between 50 meter to 5 kilometers also in some places. Even though authorities might not admit to it, but then the reality we have seen in our own eyes are still women have to actually go kilometers to fetch water. So things are definitely getting better, but we have time and something that we have some of the very I would say social evils existing in our society. There are villages where we have read water wives, more women being married by men just to fetch water, and there are kind of other such practices still existing in India. So women have to actually bear the majority of front for all the crisis that is water, and that still exists in many parts of the country. So that's definitely not a happy thing to discuss, but I think we must understand the reality to be able to change the scenario. So something that we are all concerned now, we have all been listening to the IPCC latest the AR6 version 1 report, report 1, and science is now almost clear. In India, we have got many statistics. I'm not dealing with those at least in this presentation. That the stress for water is going to increase. I think Anil Gupta knows it better, that disasters are actually making women more vulnerable insofar as water, sanitation, hygiene is concerned, and of course the lifeline for people, be it fisher folks, be it farmers, be it other occupations, people in other occupations, they are going to face a lot of challenge insofar as climate change impacts are concerned. So that means one of our own studies in 2016 in where we actually had the hottest year on earth so far in Odisha and Chhattisgarh, found out that drought makes women work almost like 3 to 4 times more. A drought year would make them work almost 3 to 4 times more than a normal year. So because most of the as Major General, the ED of an NIDM already said, we extract almost 25% of the entire groundwater resources. We are the highest extractor of groundwater. India is the highest extractor, and most of our groundwater resources are used and by women. In a way, they have to fetch it through tube wells, through pumps and all. When it comes to drinking water, so they are work for that. We just because that goes down when it's a drought year. Then there are several other challenges associated with that. So women actually face all these issues. Next slide, please. But it's not an India specific crisis actually, because we in India we discuss about all these social evils, all these traditions. But there are many other countries where women face the same issue. So women, around the world spend a collective 200 billion hours uh, uh, collecting water. So that's something that women do for us throughout the world. And an additional, 266 million hours is lost each day as women have to devote that time finding a place to relieve themselves. So still, a lot of women, they don't have, an access to a toilet, or even if there is a toilet, then no water to the toilet, and that becomes more problematic. So when during drought periods, which in fact is increasing in both intensity and frequency. So in many places, and that means we lose a lot of our productive forces in this. If we just take in that sense as well, then you see over 2.6 billion people. That's like almost 7 times the U.S. population in the world. They lack access to clean drinking water and sanitation. And among these, it is said the women and girls are disproportionately affected, and with like devastating impacts on their health, on their education, on their livelihoods, and of course, many things connected to their lives. That means they are made to suffer a lot for that. So because of this, women are actually 4 times less likely than boys to regularly attend school. Now we know the pandemic is stopping people to children to go to school, women to girls to go to school. But then the digital divide and all is something that we're now facing a great challenge now in the world for the last 2 years. But then regularly for water, and I always emphasize often the climate change angle, because that all that we're talking now is going to increase in future. So they're less likely to actually attend a school. So some statistics, very interesting statistics say, so stopping this drudgery could actually enable 46,000 women earn a college degree every day. So we are losing out on such a huge potential of educating a woman and being part of a very a better workforce, an educated workforce, a skilled workforce. So this, if done, can actually ensure all women to work productively, then the global GDP could rise by $28 trillion annually. If policymakers understand the language of GDP, then I think this should be the language, and this should be the focus. So next slide, please. Now let us come to from the water sanitation hygiene sector to the farming sector, the other sector that actually is very much important insofar as today's topic is concerned. So in India, we have said 37% of the agriculture workforce is actually women, with nearly 100 million involved in the sector. Actually, it could be much more, but then statistically we have our limitations. So women spend twice the number of hours that men do working on fields in the cropping season. And I'm not going to the remuneration part of it. We all know they're paid less than the men. So the other issues, which again is going to be increased due to climate change, is migration of men, like distressed migration. This is what I'm talking. I'm not talking about the aspirational migration that is happening to cities and all, and for better job opportunities. But this is what is distressed migration, and that is increasing by the year because of climate change. That makes women work in their family farms or farmlands in their villages or in the nearby areas much more than before. And we should not forget that they already have to manage their own homes, which demands much more time from them than from men. So they have this stupendous task at hands each day. So anything that is to do with water, any deviation from the normal, which already is now disaster is the new normal, deviation is the new normal. So any deviation from the normal, from the traditional patterns that they were accustomed to, can actually increase their burden by I don't know, by number of times. So we just cannot imagine. There are several socio-cultural, psychological studies that have been done on how women suffer from all these kind of disasters, from all these kind of situations, that compel them to actually take extra tasks from their already existing unmanageable tasks. So we have at our hand a lot of challenges unless we work, with all sincerity and in a strategic manner from now. So, but then with all this tragedy, with all this crisis that they face, so because they are in this, they are the sufferers. They are the prime sufferers. So they are poised to be the best agents of change in water management. That is the potential, because they understand water much better than men do. And no matter how civil engineering centric our water management principles are traditionally, or maybe for the last 200, 300, 400 years, anybody who actually understands water much better than others is actually a woman, because her tries to water is much, I would say, intimate, is much regular and much sharper than the men. Next slide, please. So asserting their space has been actually a great struggle. So, as I said, women have significant presence in agriculture as well as local self-governance. So that's something, some pointers to the governance models that we could actually try and intervene at. About 43% of elected representatives in panchayats and other local self-governments are women. These statistics, might be just a little bit here and there. They can be different, but I think this is the overall statistics. So at about 55%, their participation in the Manrega scheme, stands higher than that of men. However, when it comes to decision making on water, they still have miles to go. So their walk to a good place, to a solid footing on decision making platforms is still far away. We have been working on this for the last 30 years. I have been part of the planning commission processes in the previous water policy. So there have been a lot of debates on this. There have been actually, I think my next speaker has, I was browsing, and she has done a lot of study on how policies are actually, how women fare in different water policies. So I'm not touching upon that. But then, in general, women are nowhere. Basically, I can say it with all confidence that women are actually nowhere in the policies. So their role has to be clearly defined, and time has come. Next slide, please. So women have made a mark for themselves. There are several examples. There are many studies available which say, but then they're very sporadic. So they have been able to assert their space in realizing their water projects, decision making in creation of water structures. For example, a project in West Bengal under Manrega created additional potential of 7.4 billion liters, and the women actually took leadership in the decision making. So 35,000 women got benefited from that. These are examples I have collected from. I have not field verified, field tested all this, just from different sources. So someone can challenge me, or someone can just throw some more light on this. So water mechanics, I think some UNICEF programs I was looking through. So in one place in Lawa Panchayat in Jharkhand, so 450 pumps, women water mechanics, they are managing, and they are also managing other services in somewhere around 120 or 220 villages in the same area, and they were found more efficient than male counterparts in some studies have pointed out. So water supply project, in case of, it's a 2000 study, and in Gujarat, it found that women's inclusion in technical issues and decision making resulted in marked improvement in impacts. So these are some of the positive examples that we already have. So it's not that women don't fare better when they are in charge. So some studies, going beyond these sporadic examples, water projects that included women were 6 to 7 times more effective than those that did not. It's a World Bank, evaluation of 122 projects. Then, but women make up less than 17% of the WAS labor force, WAS as in water, sanitation, and hygiene, and a fraction of the policy makers, regulators, management, and technical experts. So they are nowhere, as I said, when it comes to providing you the real service, they are there. But when it comes to decision making, when it comes to management, we don't consider women as at par with men so far. So that's definitely not a symbol of a civilized, a progressive, and a society that is aspiring to be a superpower. So our own experience studying the Pani Panchayats, which are actually part of the water reforms agenda, where the water users associations are supposed to be taking all the decisions, starting from collecting, water tax to deciding on the distribution of water, to crop diversification, to crop, deciding cropping patterns and all, and all that. Women, we have seen that women have hardly any say in the decision making, and they have not been able to assert, especially in the command areas where the large, flow irrigation based commands. We have seen the males dominate, but when you go down to the rain-fed areas, not exactly Pani Panchayats, but any other institutions, the tribal dominated areas, you see that women are actually taking more decisions. That's what our own observation and our own experience says in some states in Eastern India. Next slide, please. So women first. We would say that women have to be put first before others when it comes to water, because water crisis is women's crisis, and they see the benefits of any water project much faster than others. This actually studies have proven, and hence they often play a key role in convincing the family members and community. So anything new that you want to do that benefits the community, because women are directly and intricately linked with water, anything that has to do with water, because they are the real water managers. So if they are convinced that yes, this is actually going to be beneficial to the society, because society in water actually means women. So they understand the language of water much better than others, and if they are convinced, and if that project is actually benefiting them, then they get convinced, and they also play a key role in convincing the family members as well as communities. So substantial improvements in the governance, transparency, and sustainability of water supplies are achieved when men and women are involved in equal measure than when women are involved only marginally or not at all. Studies for the last few 2 decades or all, there are several studies that actually have they conclude, or I would say they suggest this. Thank you. Next slide, please. So eagerness of women has been more to adopt new technologies, explore sustainable farming methods, and spread awareness on this. I'm quoting all this from different sources. Studies have been done, reports of projects that have actually I have studied. So women-led collective have driven changes in cropping practices and demonstrated a bigger willingness to switch to organic inputs and grow climate-resilient crops that consume less water. A study that explored the role of women farmers in achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals concludes this. And water efficiency and crop diversification choices improve when women take the lead. This is from our own experience, working on water harvesting systems in the Central Highlands. So anywhere, you you want an improvement in water management, conservation and management, and the related sustainable agricultural practices, diversification from the water intensive crops to drought resistant crops. Wherever the women are involved, it becomes faster, it becomes better. So that's in a general sense I can just say now. Next slide. So then, the policy perspective, I think, as I said, my next speaker has done some studies, so I'm not dealing with that. But their decision-making role needs to be improved. This is what would be my suggestion at this moment: is that in policy and practice, while women have some decision-making power at crop selection level in local communities, this is what we have also realized. They say in irrigation-related matters are very limited. They don't decide how to distribute the water, how to distribute and that's where the inclusive water management doesn't happen, because power traditionally vests in the men, and within that also power vests in the large farmers. Even if you go to a farming community, or there are many other segments of society where some powerful people decide. But women, irrespective of that power or belonging to whichever caste or family, they have actually tended to be more inclusive in their senses of governance and more judicious, more justice oriented than men. This is what my personal observation from villages. I can say I have worked directly with the communities for almost 17, 18 years in water management. So this from my personal experience, I can say that. Then the other impediment actually something that we see, and that has to be actually raised, is the right to land is a major issue that needs to be addressed, because women do not have right to land at large, so they do not have a right to water. And for example, the Easement Act and all, if you should see to the groundwater regulations in India, then groundwater actually belongs to the person who holds the land rights. So in that sense also, women do not have right, so they do not have a decision-making power. And because everything is linked to your land rights, your water entitlements, whatever judgments, whatever committees, like there could be several committees, but then as because policies or plans, they actually sort of mandate that women should be there. So token kind of presentations are still there in many type of committees, but then the decision making is at the hand of people who own the land. So local self-government organizations and urban bodies now have to vest more decision-making powers to women. So there we see a lot of efforts are actually being taken on water management in the urban areas as well. As Professor Gupta was rightly saying, we are also now facing urban droughts, urban issues, because people are moving to cities. So urban water, challenges are growing, and we cannot, develop some islands kind of societies in urban areas anymore. They have to be decision makers. People have to be part of decision making. So far, we have been thinking that only rural areas should be able to take collective decisions. Urban areas, people are just users of services and they pay for it. But I think things are going to change, because cities are cities have already started to exert a lot of pressure on the common pool resources such as water, and that's why men and women from the cities should now be part of decision making, part of the governance. Otherwise, things are going to be very problematic in near future. We are already in trouble due to different factors, unsustainable urbanization, gray constructions, gray infrastructure, and climate change. So I think women can play a vital role in urban decision making as well as rural. So even in the panchayat systems also, our experiences many a times women are just representatives are just token representatives. So there also a lot of work needs to be taken on. Women's role in water commons and ecosystems conservation and management needs to be enhanced. So as far as my knowledge goes, my experience goes, women have been wonderful managers of local natural resources such as forest, and mostly if I go to the, I've done a lot of studies in the indigenous communities and their resource management practices, natural resource management practices, and I see that women have actually been wonderful managers of local natural resources within the Forest Rights Act as well, where water right is granted within their managed areas. Women have in many places. I have studied in Jharkhand, I have studied in Chhattisgarh, I have studied in Odisha, elsewhere. They have actually managed the water inside the forest as well very well, and in the villages as well. So they have been very active in managing the resources. So I think we should not lose out on this knowledge. We should not, like the entire world is now recognizing the power of indigenous communities in combating climate change, in giving us more better ways of sustainable living. So I think we should bring that to mainstream decision making. So I would say I would end here with my presentation and then open to questions and comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable insights. I would like to invite Simi ma'am for moderating the question answers.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you, Nishi. Thank you very much, Mr. Panda, for your very insightful presentation. Sir, I have a few questions with respect to the work that you have been doing. You at the end, you mentioned about the role of the indigenous communities. In your area of work, could you point towards any example which has been very effective in water management specifically, and also in combating or also in taking climate action forward from the grassroots level? If there are any examples, say for example from Jharkhand or Odisha, from Chhattisgarh, if there are any, sir.
Yeah, I can just immediately point out to a village called Dengajhari in Nayagarh district in Odisha, where the women, actually the Chief Minister of Odisha also awarded these women because we popularized them a lot. So what they have done is, they have conserved a huge, huge acres of native forest, which has actually increased the water retention capacity of the forest and the village, and the water, actually the water table has gone up. Local streams have now been flowing throughout the year than before. So, there then what they have done is they have diverted this water to, better cropping mechanisms. So, in a way, like they are doing a benefit not only through providing a carbon sink, a natural carbon sink, but also by preserving water for the locality, and then also showing us, at some of the best ways to deal with nature, hence, climate solutions. So I think there are many such villages. I can say another village called Bhagirathipur in the Simlipal bioreserve area, I think, which are just few months back was in news for forest fire and all. So there also this village called Bhagirathipur has also done similar things. So these are examples, and there are many examples like this. Even in Jharkhand, I don't remember the name of the village that I last visited, but I have some notes. So they have also been doing this. So that's not our work; that is their work. So what we have been doing is to actually popularize them. We have been trying to document, and we have trying to write on them so that they get attention from the policymakers, from the media, and from others. So that is one. Personally, I was involved in work in some of the Central Highland areas from I think 1990s to almost like 2015, 16, 17 in villages where the same indigenous and other communities, they revived, once dead traditional practices because of our interventions, and they revived traditional water harvesting systems and structures to actually, and the Tarun Bharat some video that is see also, many villages in those areas, and that's why I got the NDTV award as well in 2010. It's because many villages actually they stopped migrating out. Earlier, they had already thought that drought was their fate, but then they could actually defeat drought. But then not only that, it did not stop at defeating that, but then it also went on to promote sustainable farming practices. So once they have harvested the water, we made it sure that they don't go for they don't again go for paddy kind of crops in non-monsoon period, so that they can hold more water. So there are several examples in India, in South Asia, for everywhere. I think these are examples that now in the World Bank is actually citing. So of the indigenous communities, their role in forest and water management. So I think this is high time that this becomes policy inputs for the country. So when we are actually now drafting the national water policy, I would suggest that this go into that. These examples are actually taken into consideration.
Right. Very, very correct, sir. So what has been your observation as to, even if these practices, best practices rather, if these are emulated in other places of the country as well, depending upon the circumstances and the geographical location, if are these, how are these financed, and if they have the support of the local, because we're talking about decentralized perspectives. You mentioned about the proxy candidates, in terms of the representatives. So are the voices of women really there on the ground, or it is still a thing that has to be attained? And also closely related to this is a question by one of our attendees, Induji, who asks that what are the steps taken to make sure that women are given more rights in water management? So basically, yes, sir.
I am not aware of any steps actually that is taken to make women water managers, but then they have definitely benefited from some of the schemes, or I won't call them policies, like the Water Users Association, Pani Panchayats. But then many studies don't confirm that they have actually been part of the decision making. So, but then there are also studies that you see I have cited. Women have actually been part of that. So this is work in progress, and we should be very fast on that. So that is what I would say. And on my observation on replicating things, I always say that you don't replicate things as they are. What you replicate are the principles which made them successful in their own geo-sociological contexts. So geo-hydrological, ecological, sociological, socio-cultural contexts are different for every initiative that we take in different geographies. So what is common is the kind of principles that they adopt to be successful. And one of the primary principles is women's involvement in the decision. So if, like what you saw in Tarun Bharat Sangh case, like their geography is different, their kind of water structures are different. What you see Bauli in Rajasthan, you don't see them in other places. You see tanks in central India or southern, the Gondwana areas, or the other southern plateaus. But then in principle, if there are few things that is taken care of, like participation of communities, the transparency of initiatives, accountability of the managers, the governing institutions, and inclusive nature of the process, which means that women are equal partners in the progress. So if these kind of principles are taken care of, you don't have to replicate the initiative, but you have to replicate the principles, and that makes your initiative much better in a particular geography.
Right. Thank you, sir. So I'll just pose the last question to you by Dr. Kumar Gaurav, who asks about your views on water privatization. He cites the example of leading French multinational firm like that of the Suez that apparently helps in mitigating the water crisis. Or he asks for your opinion whether it is such practices are going to accelerate the vulnerabilities for women in terms of access to safe drinking water. Again, the situation which you mentioned, the geospatial situation, etc., is to be taken care of. But what do you think in terms of India?
I will talk about some experiences. When the Harvey typhoon happened, I think only the supermarkets were selling only the Nestle water bottles, and that time the Nestle water bottles were charged almost 20-30 times more than the normal price. In California drought, or even in the day zero that you saw in this city, I'm just forgetting, Cape Town. Some of the crisis was because private institutes were in charge of the common food resources. So privatization of distribution in many places are being justified because efficiency increases. But then privatization of the resources per se can be very fatal for local communities or local decision makers. So there have been many conflicts around that. So I don't have an opinion as such at the moment. So what I'm trying to say is you better develop your own opinion and see what privatization can, what harm it can do to your common resources. That's because and then what good it can bring. So if I'm asked, then I'm not for privatization of the resources per se, but on the distribution side, if it is efficiency can be achieved, but accountability can be ensured, which at this moment in India is very weak, because our regulatory authorities need to be very strengthened. We see how pollution control boards are, what kind of in charge they are, and there are several challenges in that. So what I'm trying to say is, it's a huge question to be, that I'm able to answer within this short span of time. But my personal opinion stands: no privatization of common food resources. So that is the only thing I stand at this point. Rest of it can be debated. Thank you.
Yeah, sure, sir. Thank you so much. That is very, very important and relevant also. So thank you very much. We are grateful to you for your time and for your presentation. It was really helpful. And thank you again. So I would now request, thank you, sir. We have with us Professor Varsha Khandekar. And if I would request Ms. Nishi to introduce ma'am. Welcome, ma'am, and good morning.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to introduce you to the last speaker for the session, Professor Varsha Khandekar, Faculty, Marketing, Indian Institute of Management, Nagpur. Professor Varsha Khandekar is a faculty in the area of marketing at IIM Nagpur. She holds a doctoral degree from the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, in the area of agriculture management. Professor Varsha teaches marketing management, business research methods, strategic marketing, rural marketing, and managing markets at the bottom of the pyramid at the postgraduate level. She is a visiting faculty at IIM Shillong and National Institute of Agriculture Marketing, NIDM Jaipur. Her research interests include consumer behavior at the bottom of the pyramid, rural and agricultural marketing, and technology adoption. She has published research articles and cases in international journals. She has presented papers at international academic conferences and is a reviewer for several academic conferences and journals. At IIM Nagpur, she is currently a member of the Board of Governors of IIM Nagpur and the chairperson of Admissions and Financial Aid Committee of the Institute. She has been a coordinator for the field immersion module aimed at giving exposure to issues of industry government and for not-for-profit organizations. She has also been a mentor of the Women Startup Program at IIM Nagpur. Welcome, ma'am, to IMPRI Web Policy Learning, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Nishi, for the elaborate introduction. Dr. Simi, good morning, all of you in the organizing committee. Thanks a lot. Before I start a few disclaimers, I just heard parts of what Mr. Ranjan Panda spoke about, and he has worked extensively on water, right? And he's been talking about it from a macro perspective as well. The work that I'm going to present today happens to be one of the works that I have done, and I'll be talking about it in a very, very focused way from women's point of view. So I'll probably not talk about water issues, I'll talk about women issues. So that's the broad area in which I'm talking about. Also, I went through the brief of the certification program, and I could identify the three sustainable development goals that it talks about SDG 5, talking about gender equality, 6 about clean water and sanitation, and 11 about sustainable cities and communities. So the work that I'm presenting today will mostly focus on SDG 5, which talks about removing discrimination, acknowledging the unpaid care and domestic work that females do, allowing full and effective participation and equal opportunities to women, ensuring property rights, and policy and legislation to provide equality to females. And a part of SDG 6, which focuses on integrated water resource management and participation of local communities. Uh, can I share the screen?
Yes,
Yes,
please
you
go
can.
ahead.
Sure.
Please go ahead.
Please let me know if it is visible.
It is
Yes,
visible.
it is visible.
You can come to the first slide. Yeah, started from the third.
Yeah.
Please go ahead. Yes.
Sure. Thank you so much. So this is a paper which was done as a project, basically at IIM Ahmedabad, and I was handling this module on gender. This was a bigger project. Gender perspectives was a smaller part of it. So I'm presenting this paper. The background being one that is also mentioned in the brief of the training certification that you are a part of, that more than half of the world's food production, the work that goes in, is managed by females. Females are actively involved in irrigation management, construction of these irrigation systems. They're not only restricted to home, they do work a lot in a lot of economic activities worth almost 11 trillion US dollars that is not acknowledged. They do have issues in terms of their efforts are not acknowledged, they don't have rights. And that is where we need institutions which are democratic. Institutions as in water management institutions. If there are organizations that manage something like Water User Association that Mr. Ranjan Panda was talking about. So as long as we go with something which is very, very traditional, we'll continue to have issues related to society, related to maybe income status, caste, gender, and that is where there is a need of democratic institutions. A brief about the water policies, which the first one in India was formed in 1987, evolved in 2002, 2012, and the most recent being in 2020. None of them have given a lot of importance to gender equality. They do mention equity, social equity in terms of small farmer, marginal farmer, castes. They do mention women, but nothing concrete has come out of these water policies so far for women. We are not the only ones. There are other countries suffering through these issues, and it has been reported widely, especially in South Asian economies. Now, what prevents women participation? First, the property rights. By default, women don't have access to their property, the parental property. Household is defined as a male headed household. Who is the head of the household? The father or the husband is supposed to be the head of the household. Females or women are supposed to have their sphere of influence inside the house. Outside is for men. That's the assumption. Of course, women have their own issues. Something like they don't have enough time, spare time beyond the domestic activities. It might not be convenient to go out and participate. Literacy might be an issue. The issues with communication skills. Maybe they don't want to communicate with outsiders. There are societal norms. Not supposed to go out. Power equations between genders. And of course, even after all this, if you mandate it by legislation that women have to participate, the role is restricted to non decision making. And hence, they can't make an impact. So, all this is coming from existing literature, things that I have noted down here. Now, why are we enforcing women to participate? Is it necessary? Studies in several countries have shown that if women don't participate in water management, it leads to corruption in the system. It leads to lack of social equity and empowerment. At the same time, systems in which women have been participative, the natural resource management was better, environmental outcomes were better, financial outcomes were better, farmers or the participants were complying more, management was better, and at the same time, women benefited from this entire setup. Now, in this context, we're talking about this study where the objective was to understand what is the extent and nature of women participation in water user associations. What affects that participation? I mean, if they are not participating, what are the reasons? We went into the reasons and what do they feel about the outcomes? What if women participate? What happens then? The study was funded completely by Australian Centre for International Agricultural Research under a project that was carried out in 1718. So a large data collection happened over the year. Now, the context we are talking about is two states here, Assam and Bihar. This particular study includes 109 women respondents from the two states, almost equal participation, 48% and 52%. This was not the only data collection that was done. Beyond this, 512 data points were collected from the male farmers. So that was the main study. The gender focused study concluded with 109 women respondents. These were not necessarily farmers, these were the women of the households which were part of the Water User Association. Most of these women were across the social categories. If you see the average age being 41, education, if you see, is very, very limited, 4 years to 5 years or 6 years of formal education. Land holding maybe small to medium on an average. It varies across Assam and Bihar. So this was the basic profile of the respondents that we had. Now, as a first aid, we checked if women are involved in farm household decision making. Are they given importance? Are they given due importance in their own house? For that, we had a set of questions that we asked. We asked them if who makes the decision. So the options were men make the decision, women make the decision, it's a joint decision making. So decision related to whether you should use irrigation water, when to use, what sources of irrigation to use, when to irrigate, what crops to grow, what happens if there's an additional income. So as you see, the red cells that are highlighted, most of the decisions across the two states are taken by men. Women are not consulted. There are a few decisions such as what to grow, what crops to grow under irrigation, or what to do with the additional income that gets generated. Joint decision making happened. As in women were also a party to that. However, if you look at that middle column of women, the percentage, it's very, very low. Very few women reported that they took an independent decision on these matters. Also look at the number of respondents in the last column. Very few people, very few females responded, which clearly shows that even at a household level, majority of the decision making is being done by men. At times, there is a joint decision making. Does it mean women don't work? They do work, but probably they don't have decision making power even in their own household. This slide shows the same questions, but the split across the two states to show the contrast of how things are different in Assam versus Bihar. So if you look at this green cells here, it shows that the joint decision making was far better in Assam compared to Bihar. Of course, in general, the same trend continues. Most of the decisions are made by men. Very, very few rare decisions are made by women, but joint decision making is more in Assam compared to Bihar. So this was at a household level. Women hardly make any decisions related to water, irrigation, and things like that. Now, coming to the water user associations, so the local bodies that are formed, participative irrigation, farmers will come together, form a body with a tiered structure. So that is where we asked, are women involved in water user association decision making and are they active there? So the two states have two different columns. The stark differences have been highlighted as underlines. So if you see in general, Bihar reports a higher involvement in water user association compared to Assam. This is completely opposite to what we saw at a household level. The previous slide showed that Assam has a better joint decision making compared to Bihar. Whereas in this case, we see that when it comes to a formal institution which is outside your house, it's like a panchayat, pani panchayat, or something like that, Bihar does better. Now, this, when we went into the details of it, we realized that Bihar makes it mandatory to have females in their village level committee or central level committee. So it's mandated by the state law that there has to be a female in the committee. That is where you see the numbers being higher in case of Bihar. But even then, the general trend is that these values are very, very low. Where is the participation high? Look at the second last row of voicing needs and concerns of women, relatively higher. So clearly, they are not having any voice so far. Does the institution facilitate? Does the legislation facilitate? Do the rules facilitate? And what do women feel about it? For that, we asked if changes have been made for including views of women or representativeness of women. In general, the responses were more towards disagree. So the women who responded clearly said that not enough institutional facilitation has been done to ensure that women are represented in these water user associations. Similarly, we also asked if they themselves are comfortable in speaking up in public or pointing out the corruptions or the malpractices that happen. They said they are comfortable. So at an individual, they feel that they are comfortable. However, probably our institutions are failing to give them an opportunity, a platform where they can speak up. As the next stage, and a very important one, which I really feel, is what prevents them from participating. One is, of course, rules. If there is no rule, you can't get a reservation kind of a thing, you can't have females on those committees. But in general, what are the perceived blockages which prevent women from participating in these water user associations? So what we did is we listed down a series of reasons, maybe 10, 15 reasons for not participating. And we asked them, is this the reason? And they said agree to disagree kind of a thing. So that is where we come up with these several reasons for not participating. The scale was given strongly agree to strongly disagree. So in order to read this, a lower average score would mean it is not a problem. A higher would mean that it is a problem. And hence, it is the reason because of which I am not participating in the water user association activities. So I have arranged it in a sequence from the most problematic things to the least problematic things, or issues to non-issues kind of a thing. So if you see at the top with the score of 4.2, 4.1, 4.0 overall, issues such as only men participate or address these meetings. Men make all the decisions of the farm management. Men make all the decisions in water management. Wives need permission of husbands to attend these meetings. So these three, four things were cited as the major reasons because of which females are not able to participate. Are there any other issues? We might say, okay, these women probably don't have access to these, they can't go out, no transportation, no money. We explored that as well. So if you look at the bottom 4 or 5 reasons, women lack money or transport, not a very high score, which means that they said, no, this is not an issue. Meetings are conducted far away. Is it inconvenient for them? Probably not. Women do not feel safe. Probably not. They do feel safe. The problem might be that men dominate most of these things. And maybe somewhere a cultural issue, a psychological issue that there's a large gathering, men only take the lead. Why should we or how could we? Kind of a thing. So this clearly said that probably the issues are somewhere else. The issue might not be convenience, money, or safety, or to that extent, if you look at lack of land ownership, which is widely cited as a reason in literature for lack of women participation. They don't have land rights, and hence they don't have right over water, and they don't participate. We then explored it in a bit more detail. So the reasons that we explored here, is it common across women? Because we're talking about 109 women across different types of households, across different castes, education level, age. Is the issue same for all of them? We went into their demography and mapped if the reasons were same. I'll explain this table. So on the left, you see the reason for not participating, something like family tradition and culture prevents them, or maybe lack of land ownership prevents them, lack of money, need for permission. These are the reasons. We explored three factors: one being age, second, education, and third, landholding. I'll take each one of them one by one. So when we checked age, we figured out two, two correlations or two strong associations where we found the first one here, 0.22, it had a positive relationship, which means as the age increases, tradition and culture become an issue. Probably older women find it difficult to break that tradition and cultural barrier and step out. On the same hand, if you look at the bottommost reason, lack of interest, it's negatively related to age. Younger women think lack of interest is the problem. So for these two different categories of women, older women or aged women have a different issue. They don't want to leave the family tradition and culture and step out. Younger women, on the other hand, probably don't care, don't have enough interest in water management. So we could clearly see that barriers are not the same for everyone. Similarly, in terms of education, if you see, there are 5 values in this column, 4 of them are negative. So females with a lesser education considered lack of land ownership, male dominance, if we could combine these and call it as male dominance, men participating, men making all the decisions, and permission required. Less educated females had these issues that I need permission to go out. Or men participate, they make all the decisions, probably I don't get any chance. At the same time, what happens to educated women or relatively more educated women? Lack of interest. Again, like age, we see a difference in what prevents them in terms of education also. Less educated females have more issues related to men, that men are dominating or we need permission to go out or step out. Educated women, on the other hand, don't have these issues. They have issues such as I don't have interest in it. Similarly, we checked for land holding because each of these females, although they did not own the land themselves, their household had a land, and therefore we mapped who belongs to a small farm household and who belongs to a relatively bigger one. So if you see, there are 3 relationships in the last column which are negative, which means that households or females of households with smaller land have these issues. Tradition and culture, females with smaller land holding find it difficult. Meetings are conducted far away from home. So convenience or locational convenience is an issue for poorer females. Similarly, lack of money or transport. So obviously they probably belong to very, very small household with limited land and may not have enough resources to participate in such things. What happens to females who are from a better of household, larger land holding? They have no interest in water management issues. So we could probably see that the entire sample is sort of divided. One, I don't have interest and hence I don't participate, which is a trademark of younger, educated, and relatively wealthier households and women from these households. On the other hand, older females, less educated females, and females from relatively poorer households have issues related to access, resources, convenience, and the male dominance, if we can call it so. Now, even though they are not participating much, a water user association is working in their area. Their household is getting benefited. So we ask them if it is making sense. What is the outcome like? Because each water user association, the concept came in because he wanted to maybe bring in efficiencies in water usage, productivity gains, income gains, positive environmental impacts, and hence we checked all of these. We checked if water user association has led, so this entire setup has led to any production and income benefits for people. Has it led to equity benefits? Has it led to environmental benefits and financial benefits? So if you look at the aggregate scores, in general, people believe, these women respondents believe that yes, there has been production and income benefits. Income went up, productivity went up. Maybe there is a environmental benefit in terms of less soil erosion or degradation. There is a financial benefit. However, the one which has the least score here is the equity benefit. Now, if we dig deeper into this, each of these four dimensions, we have divided it into finer dimensions to understand what exactly is an equity benefit. Where is it that we are lacking? So on this slide, I want you to focus on the highlighted area. So there were four dimensions we were talking about in the previous slide. Each of them is split under four dimensions further. We are talking about the equity benefits. So how do we define this equity benefit in our study is wider membership and greater involvement of people or farmers in general, sense of ownership and empowerment of farmers in general, greater involvement and empowerment of women, that's a dimension in equity benefits, and fairness and justice in terms of the distribution of water that happens. Now, in general, if you look at the last column here, these women respondents felt that yes, there is a membership, there is an involvement, there is an empowerment for farmers. However, look at this number 1.75, an average out of 5. It's very, very low. They clearly feel that it has not led to involvement of women, it has not led to empowerment of women. So, although a typical water user association is achieving most of its objective to some extent, it's probably not 5 out of 5. However, it is lacking in terms of delivering equity benefits. Is it only women that are suffering? Is there somebody else? We explored that as well. So, what are the direct and indirect impacts of this? We checked across different stakeholders. So, when there is a water user association, you will have different types of people. You will have village as a whole. You will have some rich farmers. You'll have wage laborers. You will have farmers which are at the head reach or tail end farmers of the irrigation system or the canal system, youth. So, every stakeholders, and we checked for each one of them who got benefited or who had a positive impact. Now, looking at the average numbers, we see that women were the least benefited stakeholders out of this entire arrangement. Another one is yes, tail reach farmers, which has been an issue, especially in Bihar. A lot of farmers who were up in the stream, who had access to the channel first, diverted water or would typically divert water and get most of it, and it will not reach the farmers who are at the end of the channel or canal in that sense. So, women are one of the least benefited entities or stakeholders in this entire setup. Now, what happens if women formally participate? Bihar has mandated, probably not much of an impact seen there other than formal involvement. What happens if they get involved? We asked women, what do you think will happen if women were to take part in it formally? So we gave them certain options, such as it will provide opportunity to women to raise their concerns with the leaders, or their concerns on water will be communicated better. It will lead to better outcomes in water management, or maybe a better culture with respect to gender acceptance or social standing. So the results clearly indicate that women feel that if they are formally involved in these water institutions, maybe WUA at some places and something else at some places, their respect and social standing will go up. They will gain knowledge about water management. And given that they are the majority users of water for irrigation and domestic purposes, maybe it makes sense. It will also help them change rules, or maybe the traditional rules which unfairly limit the role of women to a domestic sphere and does not allow them to go out. So in general, all of them agreed that these things will help in all different dimensions, but the majority of them, in terms of a culture where there's a better gender equality, lesser gender gap, more respect and social standing, knowledge about water management, and challenging the existing or traditional roles of women in the society. Is that what women felt that formal inclusion of women in water user associations will do? Overall, we end of the study, we realized that men dominate this entire process for natural and obvious reasons. Women inclusion formally in water user associations is very, very limited. And even if it is there, it is restricted to women related concerns. Nothing to do with maybe general concerns or compliance or fee payment or maintenance of the structures. They still don't speak up relating on things related to that. Reasons that prevent women from participating, mostly men taking a lead. Probably convenience is not an issue. Land ownership rights, women don't consider it to be an issue, although it is documented to be an issue in the literature so far. Also, each kind of a women or different sections of women are impacted differently, or their reasons are different for not participating. Water user associations so far had reasonable impact in terms of productivity benefits, environmental benefits, financial benefits. However, the equity benefits are still questionable as reported by women. There is a need for greater involvement and empowerment of women as described by them, as pointed out by them. If we include them, we are looking at a more equitable distribution of power within that structure, within the society, a more respectable place for women in general. So this is where I'll close. So just to reiterate, the SDG 5 that talks about gender equality, that angle was explored in this study. And that is where we found out that yes, it does matter, and women are left out, and for different reasons is that they are left out from the water user association and participation. So that's it from my side.
Thank you, ma'am, for your valuable insights. I would like to invite Simi ma'am for moderating the questions.
Thank you very much, Nishi. And thank you, Professor Khandekar. It was so illuminating to listen to the work that you have done on the ground and the findings. It actually showcases a lot of dilemmas that we are facing in our society, as in who are the beneficiaries, and whether you really want to be a participant in the process, and whether you would just want to be a recipient of the development. So it really raises a number of questions and serious thoughts that needs to go into and actually I guess policy is a reflection of what the grassroots level realities are to a great extent, because it has, as you said, it has been documented that women's interests are there, but in reality it's not to be seen. So to an extent, of course. So there are a lot of contradictions, and hence this brings us to a few questions as to I mean, your perceptions, your understanding and observations from the grassroots as to why are more educated and younger women not interested in water management. Could you highlight?
We did not ask this directly to the female participants. However, if you think about it, if you look at who are these people, younger women typically will be married, will have kids, will have responsibility of the families and in-laws, especially in rural areas where they stay in a more household setup. They might have less time to think about these issues. And studies have shown that women who are either aged or widowed are more likely to participate in outside activities because they have time. They don't have household responsibilities anymore. Coming to education, I'm not sure if this exactly is the reason here, but one of the possible reasons could be if a female is educated, maybe she is already doing something, she's occupied, whatever it is, maybe she's an ASHA worker or she's somebody else, a teacher or something, and maybe she doesn't have time for this. Maybe there is an opportunity cost for getting involved in these activities. So, of course, interest could simply be out of no interest. I don't have interest in this water management. But given that it is younger women, and this has been found in studies that they don't have enough time to devote for these external activities.
Right. So, who fills in the gap? Is it like the dominance of men continues in such areas? Because in water management issues, especially at the rural level or in the area of your field work, what did you find?
Like I said, out of Assam and Bihar, Bihar had mandated that these committees should have women representatives. So that was done, and as a result, you see even in the responses that Bihar reports higher representation. Actually, on the ground, what happens is this: yes, you elect women to the committees, you have women representatives. However, they are represented by their counterparts. So men of the household will take part in the meetings and they will voice concerns. So on papers they are representative. Even then they are not technically a part of the committee or they are not raising their concerns. So it continues. The question is what happens in future. We have not done a trend analysis, so we cannot say that has it increased or decreased. But given the trend where people might be migrating out, or even if they are here, they might be doing some other activity rather than agriculture. A lot of this burden falls on women, managing the farm household as well as taking these decisions. So in that case, they will have to step up unless they want to, as in, stay behind and not get benefited from it. So that question of is it increasing or decreasing? I wouldn't be in a situation to tell because we have not done a time series analysis on this.
Right, ma'am. So, do you think it is a matter of incentives also, that in any form, whether it is in the form of recognition or regular awards or local level, some certificates distribution, or even if it is in terms of monetary incentives. So, if this is provided at the local grassroots level, do you think it would be more um, it would raise more interests, generate more interests from the community?
I'm not sure about incentives and especially the monetary incentive. You have to see what is preventing them. Is lack of incentive preventing them or lack of resources preventing them? In that case, incentives would help. But what is preventing them essentially are the softer issues. The issue that probably within the household she's not allowed to speak up. There's a huge power equation, there's a huge gender gap, and incentives can probably not address that. So that is where I have my reservations on incentives, and especially monetary incentives. From this study, we could clearly identify that the issues are more one. Of course, there's an institutional or legislation level issue that formally they are not included. Second, they are much softer issues. And that could only happen when you gradually allow these women to come out. The culture allows you, the in-laws of the daughter-in-laws of the households are allowed to come out and speak up. That is when this barrier will be broken. And of course, when they see that when they are participating, they are getting some sort of a respect or recognition. They are being considered as progressive. They are being respected in the society. Probably that will be the incentive for them. Maybe that will encourage. I don't know. And at the same time, the entire society has to be encouraging. So, like in a few cases, not in the case of water, but in a few business cases, where companies approached rural women to set up their own businesses, to get more incomes, to in a way empower them. Women came up, they broke the traditions and they stepped out of the house. They started selling things. They gained economic freedom. The flip side was the domestic peace went out of the window. Because the moment the female is empowered, she has her own income. family was upset. And this has happened, not in case of water, but in several rural areas, because the society doesn't really want that, or maybe a particular culture doesn't want that. So main issue could be that there are states where there is no legislation on women inclusion, but the women still participate. They have good participation even without legislation. And there are states who started water user association even before there was a legislation. So legislation alone probably cannot help. Participation is probably not there, not only due to absence of legislation. So both the things, legislation plus several of our own cultural issues that these women have to face.
Right. Actually, that's the contradiction that we have to constantly grapple with. Societal expectations, the realities, and legislations, whether they are really translating on the ground, and if at all they are, how much they are being accepted. So this is like a real thing that needs to be. I think it will be evolving. I mean, it will evolve over a period of time as we move towards progress of the entire society and the nation as a whole. So just to put a last question to you, because we might have a few more questions. This is again by Induji, which is there any solutions for these softer issues that you've just mentioned? And could you talk about any steps that have been taken so far, according to you?
I'm not aware of any concrete steps taken so far. Even if they are taken at a legislative level, will it help? I don't know. It's more like a cultural issue. So cultural issues cannot be sorted probably by rules and laws. So each culture will have their own ways. Cultures where women are entrepreneurial, women are very very active. They are decision makers versus cultures where they are not allowed to speak up, kind of a thing. So water policies, they are starting to talk about women as a stakeholder. They are starting to talk about women's problems because they are using water and water resources, but they are still not addressing in a direct way how do you handle these cultures. They're still at a very, very broader level where they're trying to ensure their participation. You can, on papers, get women in the committee. How do you make them come to the committee meetings? So that will probably remain a challenge. Unless in general, as a whole, the awareness goes up, the education levels go up, the affluence level goes up, and these women are allowed to go out, go beyond their farm and house.
Thank you so much. When you're talking about the water user associations, the challenges that exist does the lack of funds generally dominate the working of the associations? And there are multiple related functions, for example, maybe irrigation or training of the staff, maybe the farmers or the personnel. So how much the lack of funds is an issue, and how much can the panchayats, for example, can support? And we also know that at the local level, financial independence and autonomy is also a challenge in our country.
See, from what I understand, these structures are made by the government. They are handed over to the local authorities, and then under their guidance or as an independent organization or setup, WUAs manage it. Now, for each person who's using that water, they collect a charge. And a part of it is sent back to the government because they have put in money in developing these infrastructures, and a part of it is used for maintenance activities. Training and all, mostly the local government takes place because apparently water is a state subject. Now, in some cases, it was reported that it's very, very difficult to get money from people. So very few people, probably 5 to 10% people will come up and pay upfront without even a reminder. 20% people will pay after a reminder. 30% people will pay after being coerced to pay. And almost 50% people will still not pay up. So how do you expect these structures to continue functioning, being maintained if people are not paying up? So are the rates too high? We need to probably see, because there's a fixed part of the rental and there is a per acre or per bigha kind of a rental that they pay. If you look at Western countries where these models have been very successful, they pay water charges, they pay very heavy water charges, and you can't draw a single drop of water from the ground without government's permission. So, like in our country, if you own the ground area, land, the water below it is yours, right? So, we are now starting to acknowledge that they are different. You can own a land, you cannot own the water below it. So, like in Australia, you can buy a land, water rights are not with you. Water rights belong to the government body. They will give you rights, as in you will have to buy water from the government for water which is there in your own ground. So somewhere we have not created water markets. Is it good? Is it bad? Given that we are still a sustainable agriculture where most of the farmers are small and marginal, do we need a water market? Will it not impact them in a negative way? Will they be able to buy water? All those are questions. I'm not saying that we need a water market, but there are countries who have benefited by getting a water market. And that is where the financial burden that you are talking about and enough money or not having enough money is taken care of. If there's no rainfall, the government says you can't have water. You can't grow this particular crop because it requires a lot of water. Can we say that at this stage? Probably not. So we shouldn't like move from this extreme to that extreme, but we should probably start recognizing, which I was happy to see in one of the recent documents, that water rights will be separate or should be separate from land rights. And you have to pay up for something which is getting scarce. Will the burden be on poor people? I don't know, probably yes. And then you have to take care of them. How do they pay up for the water? But funds, yes, once in a while it is an issue. Even generating local funds is an issue because people don't pay up. It was reported during the study that several people didn't pay up, although they used water.
Very valid, very valid. Thank you so much, ma'am. So just to conclude, if you would want to give final bullet points on policy recommendations as the way forward.
No, I will strictly avoid policy recommendations. What I'll say is there's a need to get into the softer issues that I'm talking about. Maybe a further deeper insight into, from their point of view, what can be done. What encourages you to participate, what prevents you to participate, can be taken up. Policy level is a huge thing. Of course, each state government works on its own objectives with what they see is the current objective of water management. But yes, need to look at females, because as we progress, as water becomes scarce, as climatic changes happen, women, studies across the globe have shown that women are the most affected party. Anything happens, women are the most affected party. And hence you have to take care of them. You have to involve them, their own concerns. So a decision maker and a user, if they are different, in this case, if user is a female and decision maker is a male, you have to consider the user concerns. So right now, all the policies consider only decision makers of the household, not the user of the household.
I fully support your very powerful statement. I think it should be stated more frequently and more strongly. So thank you so much. It has been really very interesting interacting with you and listening to you and knowing about the work that you have done. I hope that this can also be taken, studied in other parts of the country. So it really would mean a lot to the communities and also to the overall policy. So thank you so much. It has been very interesting and we really loved having you. Thank you so much, ma'am. So I would now hand it over to...
Thank you, Dr. Simi. There was a query on paper. The paper is available in the public domain and its full text is available. And there are related studies also out of this project. So those who are interested can have a look at it.
Sure. Thank you. Over to you, Nishi.
Thank you, ma'am. With that, we come to the closing of day 1 of our 3-day online certificate training program on women-led sustainable and decentralized water resource management, a multi-stakeholder perspective, jointly being organized by National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, and IMPRI Center for Environment, Climate Change and Sustainable Development, New Delhi. I would like to propose a vote of thanks to our eminent panelists, Mr. Maulik Sisodia, Mr. Ranjan K. Panda, and Professor Varsha Khandikar for their valuable insights and knowledge sharing. I would also like to thank Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal, Professor Anil Kumar Gupta, Dr. Simi Mehta, the coordinators, and all the participants present here. We look forward for the tomorrow's session, which will be starting at 10:30 a.m., having very distinguished panelists, Ms. Anjali Makhija, Chief Operating Officer, SM Sehgal Foundation, Dr. Marcela D'Souza, Director, WOTR Center for Resilient Studies, Dr. Mansi Bal Bhargava, entrepreneur, researcher, and educator, former Executive Director, Saki Waters. Looking forward to meet all the participants tomorrow. Have a good day and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Nishi. And before we sign off, we'll have a 30 seconds poll for the participants. If you could just spare some time and share your feedback.
I'll log off, Dr. Simi. Thank you so much, all of you at IMPRI.
Sure, sure.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye. Have a good day. Yes, thank you. Yeah, you can leave after submitting the feedback. Thank you so much.